So I had received the Z10 on October 11th, which would make it just past 2 months since I had it. And in those time, I had put in 500 miles, face planted, fell on multiple occasions, and rode all the way out to Far Rockaway, well, almost, in sub-zero conditions. So what do I think of the Z10 now that I have a bit more time to get acquainted? In this episode, 2 month and 500 miles review of the Ninebot One Z10, building a road cage for my Canon 80D DSLR, and crunch, another fall. I swear one of my feet must be on backward. As always, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and if there are any topic you want me to cover in the future, let me know in the comment section below.
First of all, my apology if this does come off as a little bit of a love fest for the Z10. You see, we sort of bonded last weekend over the Winter Warrior rides. We went through a lot together, even though it sort of died on me prematurely.
Really? It wasn't you, it was me. And I totally have to record this while my wife is out of the house. First of all, I had no idea why it is so darn hard to get a hold of a Z10. For whatever reason, Ninebot doesn't seem to be in the business of selling their own product, as I still see threads on the EUC forum from people who can't seem to get a hold of one. Ninebot, what are you doing? Now I know that here in the US you can buy a Z10 from online sources, often vendors from China direct. Now, I don't really recommend it since electric unicycle is still a relatively new technology and is not really a mass-marketed product by any means, so regardless of which manufacturers you're thinking of, they all potentially have issues and flaws. And the Chinese manufacturers simply don't maintain the same level of customer services we here in the US typically expect. So that's where a really good dealer is super helpful. So my friend, I feel for you, but stay strong, and I promise that the wait will be well worth it. And in my humble opinion, this is why. First of all, the Z10 is really like no other electric unicycle you have ever ridden before. Because of the wider and heavier tire, it behaves and handles very differently depending on the speed you are going at.
And because of this, your prior experience with other wheels will likely not translate. And if you try to ride the Z10 like any other traditional wheels, it's not going to work. It's going to feel awkward, unwieldy, difficult to turn, and you will leave believing that the wheel is flawed. But the thing is, it's not the wheel, it's you!
Now the argument on whether or not a wheel should be predictable is a whole nother thing, and we won't get into it here. But my personal feelings are that easy and predictable makes for a boring ride. And I bet that's why there's this obsession with speed for Gotway riders. The Z10 is designed for fun at lower speed and is for those of us men enough to not require compensating a certain department. After all, that is what a huge camera is for. This is a 12-year-old Eldorado rum, which was aged in a whiskey barrel for an additional layer of oaky flavoring, which makes it a great sipping rum because it still has the smoothness of the rum while still have an additional hint of whiskey flavoring. Now, why am I selling you rum now? Because I would describe the Z10 the same as this rum, which is that it has complexity that makes it interesting. It is not a difficult wheel to learn. Now, considering that I have only been riding it for 2 months, I feel pretty darn comfortable on it. However, with the experience, I can also tell that there's just so much more you can do with the wheel given more practice and experiences. This also makes it an interesting starting wheel. Now, I started with the IPS i5, which I still love for its unique blend of maneuverability, slow but beginner-friendly speed, extreme agility, and unparalleled portability. Generally, the feelings are that you should start with a lower power wheel, learn how to ride in EUC before moving on to the big boys. that does leave you with a wheel that you will likely quickly outgrow, but that's just sort of how it is. However, the Z10 actually has a surprising number of features that is very helpful for a beginner. The big fat tire give you a much wider contact patch that help with stability, and even its weight give you a very predictable and stable yet maneuverable ride that just want to help you stay up as long as you're sensible enough to stay below about 15 miles per hour. And even below that threshold, the Z10 is still loads of fun. The wide curved profile of the tire allow you to push the toe ankle to extreme territories for shockingly sharp pedal dragging turns if you have the balance to pull it off. The additional centrifugal force generated by the weighty wheel coupled with the respectable torque rating give you a consistent, purposeful ride that can be great foundation for, again, all kind of interesting tricks if you have the patience to learn and practice. Now, some people might poo-poo the low-speed fun factor. However, I think that it is an interesting alternative to the often dangerous competition for ever greater speed, again, on a platform that I still don't think is built for it. Still, no matter what I say, the first thing people who sees the scooter will ask me is always, so how fast does it go? So to talk about that, we'll go on our weekly New York City e-boarding group rides, which aside from meeting your fellow hardcore EV riders, your camera shrunk!
Yeah, it needs pills.
Also give you the perfect opportunities to test and compare the other electrical unicycles, or e-boards. Ladies and gentlemen, the Monster, the 22-inch Godway speed machine weighing in at 72 pounds. And despite its weight, this is to the Z10 as a skinny road bike is to a knobby tire mountain bike. It rides as if it is on rail, stable at speed, and from the moment you put your feet on its huge and generous pedal, it just feels like it wants to go fast. I also get to try the legendary Kelly New York City electric board. Trying is the operating words here, since this is actually the first time I ever stepped foot on an electric skateboard. I guess I'm starting from the top, since the Kelly boards, I believe, is one of the fastest e-board you can purchase on the market. So before we move on to the rides, it is time for our weekly strange obsession.
So here's my main vlog camera, the Canon 80D. Paired with the Canon 10-18 lens, this combo offers, a really wide field of view, which works very well. Also coupled with reliable autofocus, as well as great performance in low light condition, despite the fact that this camera has a crop sensor.
On the go, I carry it via the Spider harness system so that it is always accessible. But despite the tough all-magnesium construction, I'm still afraid to carry it on a ride, and this is where the SmallRig Cage come in.
So here it is, fully kit out. I try hard to balance the bulk and weight against protection, and I'm generally happy with the result, I would say. Some of these 15mm mounting rods is primarily here to protect the lens against impact, and so is the cage itself. Plus, it makes my camera look like a TIE fighter, which I think is a very good thing. Now, given how prone I am to face planting, we might put this little contraption to the test sooner than we think.
Back to the ride. Now I have to reiterate, the Z10 is really not designed for speed, and comparing to most other modes of transportation, I would even say that no electric unicycle are comparing to, let's say, a scooter. The lack of inherent mechanical stability and effective braking means that you're risking life and limbs at anything more than 30 miles per hour unless you are under ideal conditions.
So I was initially torn between choosing the Z10 versus the Godway M Super X. Although I I liked the Z10 and its fat tire, I was very tempted by the M Super X and its claimed top speed of 35 miles an hour. The thinking were, it'd be nice to have the speed if you need it, right? Especially in an urban riding condition.
But that line of thinking is flawed, since although both the Z10 and the M Super X have the torque and power to go fast, matching and exceeding that of a bicyclist, we do not have the same stopping capabilities. Electric unicycle generally rely on motor braking, which any auto enthusiast would tell you is vastly inferior to mechanical braking. Nothing beats a braking pad on disc when it comes to scrubbing speed fast. Plus, we're riding unicycles, like with just one wheel. On a motorcycle, the rear wheel provides about 40% of the braking power and contribute to the overall stability of the platform. For us, since we don't have a rear wheel, we are essentially down 40% when it comes to stopping power at a similar speed, plus the deficit of an inherently unstable platform. So even though we have the same acceleration as a, let's say, 250cc bike, we do so without the same ability to stop. Now do you understand why we all have to pad up the way we do? The most effective type of braking on an electric unicycle is unfortunately putting your face directly to the asphalt. Nothing stops you quicker, as I'm demonstrating right here. Oh, did I mention that I fell again? I upgraded part of my giant selfie stick to carbon fiber, and on the first ride it promptly came apart and conveniently dropped right in front of me for the poor Z10 to trip over. Back to the Z10, the lack of effective braking puts a damper on what I would consider to be a comfortable cruising speed. However, it is also mostly because of the fact that I predominantly ride in dense urban traffic. Now, if you have open stretch of well-paved road or bike path to ride on, braking wouldn't be as much of an issue, and that translates to higher cruising speed. Which is why e-boarding rides is great for speed, since they tend to choose better paved and straighter routes. But what about the speed wobble I had mentioned during my initial impression of the wheel? That was an issue I was able to overcome through better techniques and weight distribution. More specifically, getting as wide as I can, shifting my feet on a regular basis to help keep my stance loose, and bending my knee to better absorb bumps, and carving with the wheel more frequently to increase contact pressure and control, I think.
The truth is that I tried a lot of different techniques, and some work better than others, and oftentimes for a reason that isn't really immediately obvious to me. However, through sheer muscle memory alone, I think I'm beginning to better understand how to ride the Z10 in various different circumstances and how to best leverage its strength.
So perhaps in time, even my issue with its braking could be overcome through better techniques. In the end, the Z10 will always demand your full attention, and you can never forget the fact that you are riding one, for it is like no other wheels. And in exchange, you get a complex and exciting ride profile that always pushes for the boundary of your riding skill and keep you fully engaged in its ride experiences. After all, shouldn't it be about the ride and not the destination? Yikes, this ran kinda long, but I'm glad you made it to the end. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and let me know what you think. I'm still pretty new at this, so any feedback will be greatly appreciated. Until the next episode, thank you.